Dark psychology is a manipulative technique capable of inducing feelings of helplessness, hopelessness, worthlessness, and more. It is used not only by specially trained villains, but sometimes also by our loved ones, often unconsciously and often quite deliberately. After watching this video, your understanding of manipulation techniques will become much clearer. You will learn how words can be used to trigger allergies, depression, and even schizophrenia in a person. Forewarned is forearmed. How can you tell if such techniques have been used against you? A state of confusion. Someone says something and you don't know how to react because you've been presented with at least two opposing stimuli. A state of excitement when you try to prove to your opponent that you are in fact a good person. A sense of incompleteness. The conversation ended long ago. You've already said goodbye, but you're still replaying it in your head, arguing with an imaginary interlocutor, trying to prove your point. Regardless, manipulation is constantly used against you. Sometimes those who use it mean well, but for whom? However, that doesn't make it any easier for us, whether they mean well or not. When is it acceptable to use such techniques? First, when kindness doesn't work. Have there been times in your life when you realized that neither words nor persuasion could stop a destructive person? They projected their psychological complexes onto you and derived pleasure from aggression, whether overt or hidden. Second, when safety is threatened. At some point, you realize that maintaining a relationship with this person will cause you to lose self-respect, especially if respect is of value to you. Third, when dealing with unreliability. Sometimes a person makes promises and then breaks them, says one thing and does another. In short, a liar. Fourth, when you don't want to be part of the script you're being dragged into. You may be hurt, offended, or humiliated. Ultimately, only what forms a shared narrative with us can affect us. You don't have to participate in such plots. Let's look at typical examples of manipulation. Gaslighting. No, that never happened. I didn't promise that. You're overreacting. This way, you'll soon stop trusting yourself and begin doubting your memory. Passive aggression. I'm not going to discuss this with you. Nothing's wrong. You can't take a joke, can you? This will make you start believing you're at fault. Flattery. Listen, you're as impeccable as always. I'm so glad we're colleagues. You're the best specialist. I don't think there is anyone better in the entire country. Could you please help me finish this report by Tuesday? I'm completely useless at this, and no one can handle it better than you. You'll end up always doing their reports. Pity, young man. The situation is hopeless. I don't know who else to turn to. Could you buy baby formula for my child? Devaluation. And you think this is a good result? You think you did well? What a small dream you have. This tool can also be directed at ourselves, devaluing our experiences. I didn't learn anything new. I already knew all this. It's all common knowledge. Feigned ignorance. This is primarily a childhood strategy, but is also used in adult life. Sometimes I see it in comments. I don't understand anything. Can you explain in normal human words? Some people genuinely don't understand. Then I question their cognitive abilities. Maybe they should start with the alphabet or counting sticks, but many say this deliberately. The problem is with you. Motivational coaches. They tell us everything depends only on you. There's a useful grain here, taking responsibility after all. But are all the reasons really within me? Adapt, do something. Is the world really irrelevant? Yet it's possible to attribute all troubles and problems in relationships and work to one person, shifting all responsibility onto them. Oh, you're never like everyone else. Everything you do is wrong. You're just lazy, not trying hard enough. This creates excessive responsibility and tension in a person. They think the problem is solely with them and that everything depends only on them. There are many similar examples, but we won't dwell on trivialities. Let's instead talk about how to completely destroy a person's psyche. I've told you many times about the shadow. Well, now it's time to make friends with it. Imagine you've set a goal, you know exactly what you want, and you've made a plan. Then someone asks you, "Are you sure you've thought of everything?" For example, I decide I want to become a writer. They tell me, "Writers don't earn much these days. Do you really want to live a half-starved existence? What will you write about? Nobody reads anymore." What happened? Destructive people find questions that turn support into obstacles to destroy someone's goal. Let's approach this systematically. Goal setting. What are you avoiding in your life by fixating on this? Control of the goal. Are you sure everything is under control? That's an illusion. Quality of the goal. Are you sure it's worth it? Are the losses not too great? Helpers. Do you really want to achieve this with these people? Obstacles. Who or what else might stand in your way? The first step. You can't know the first step. The subtle phrase, "think about it," is ideal for destabilizing a goal you don't like. Paradoxically, it can also be used to test your own goal. If you've set a goal, this script can help you test its resilience. If your goal is destroyed by your own doing, then either the goal is wrong or you've formulated it incorrectly. Indicators of a destroyed goal include hysterical laughter or aggression from the opponent. You should radiate goodness, smile slightly with the corners of your mouth, and raise your eyebrows sympathetically, with an understanding yet sad face, as if you're looking at the person and thinking, "I understand exactly what you mean. I used to be like that too. I dreamed." From my own experience, I can say it is not easy to overcome the effects of dealing with manipulators on your own. If you've been subjected to aggressive influence for a long time, it might be worth seeking help from a psychologist. Therapy helps find internal points of support, teaches you to build personal boundaries, and protect yourself. If you're unsure whether you need a psychologist, at least try it. Discuss your experiences with a specialist. Start changing your life for the better and give yourself this gift. In a manipulator's arsenal, there are many tools for mind control. The ability to think in different patterns allows a person to adapt to others' thinking strategies and, as a result, become extremely persuasive. With skillful use, this turns into a weapon of destructive force, especially in loving hands. Just recall how parents usually scold a child for mischief. Want a quick course on being a bad parent? Let's do it. Intent. The aim might be to associate any thoughts of intentions with unpleasant memories. Upon failure, ask, "Why did you do that?" You can be sure the word "why" will become linked to criminal designs, and henceforth they'll be convinced that everyone, including themselves, wishes them only harm. Redefinition. You can look at the same situation in different ways, highlighting only those aspects that lead to a non-resourceful state. "Why are you so nervous?" Or, "Isn't it a bit early to calm down?" Perspective. Involve other people. What will others think? What will grandma say? You always behave like this. What if guests saw? Result. It's important to see different results of your actions. A person is motivated to do something if, besides the obvious result, there are several implicit ones accompanying the goal. For example, someone says, "I want to learn English." Ask them, "And what will knowing English give you besides that?" Let them try to name 5 results their goal will lead to. And don't forget to add, "But you haven't thought about this." At different periods of life, each of us develops different ideas about ourselves. This is called self-concept. At some point, the idea emerges, "I am smart," or "I am a humanities person," or "I am a tech person." The more evidence you have that you've exhibited a certain quality in life, the more confident you are that you've always been that way. Think about why you decided, for example, that you are smart. Most likely it's sex-related to memories when this was confirmed, and it doesn't matter whether the experience was real or imagined. Erasing self-concept doesn't happen quickly under normal interaction. It rather blurs. Initially, it becomes doubted, and only then does it disappear entirely. Who doesn't recall the rhetorical question? What kind of man are you if you can even hammer a nail? And your friends are just the same. How do you think a man whose self-concept of being a man is shaken will behave? He needs support, perhaps from other women, or through the virtual world, or alcohol, anywhere he can feel like a hero again. Homework. Suddenly, in the middle of the video, try provoking yourself with phrases like, how many push-ups can you do? 50? Normal people do 200. How long can you hold a plank? 5 minutes? Everyone holds it for 10. Something like that. The context may change in your case, but you get the idea. You can take any sphere. Just rely on facts. Practice this from time to time, provoking yourself. At some point, your personality will simply become impossible to erase. The particle not is ignored unconsciously. If you tell a small child, don't run, they will definitely run. If in a conversation you ask a person not to worry, not to be nervous, not to fret, and do this often enough, believe me, the mentioned state will soon manifest. Then all you need to do is support them in this state with kind words. Well, it's not all that bad in your life. Hang in there. A mandatory condition is to leave the interlocutor immersed in the problematic state and reinforce it by suggesting they have a drink and sending them to sleep in that state. The next morning, the person might wake up relatively alert, but the problematic state has already settled in their subconscious, and thus the human personality is erased, and then parents wonder how their boy ended up in narcology. That's the algorithm for destroying personality. One physical component, feel the meaninglessness. Where does it resonate in your body? 2, many examples from life. A similar state often arises at work and on weekends. 3, timeline. This happened before, in childhood not long ago, and will likely happen in the future. 4, connection with other similar states. This resembles fear, helplessness, hopelessness, uncertainty, weakness. 5, reinforcement in internal dialogue. Think about it, and don't forget to add not, e.g., not too much hatred in your life. Don't delve too deep into your problems. You're not always alone. So far, we've covered relatively harmless techniques. Let's change that. Allergy is an unusual heightened sensitivity to various substances that don't cause painful reactions in most people. For some, enemies include house dust, pollen, mold, and food products. Imagine a situation. A woman has difficult relations with her husband. He drinks, squanders money, loses it in casinos. The wife, mother of a 3-year-old, is not very pleased, to put it mildly, and asks her husband to get his act together and live normally for the family's sake. One day, the husband beats his wife, and she files a report with the police. Outside, the sun is shining, and there's poplar fluff. The next year, summer comes. She's already separated from her husband. Again, the sun, June. The negative is forgotten. Poplar fluff and an acute allergic reaction, which in the woman's opinion came out of nowhere. To successfully trigger an allergic reaction in someone you know, you need to either create or remind them of a state of helplessness and hopelessness when the person didn't know what to do. And at that moment, introduce the allergen. The allergen should be applied in a way that it's memorable through all channels of perception. For example, an orange is a good allergen. It has a bright color, strong smell, and specific taste, making it an excellent trigger memorized at the subconscious level to initiate learned helplessness. It's also desirable for the context to repeat, or for people to be present who remind them of past experiences. So, the algorithm for inducing allergies. Do you have people around who cause helplessness, hopelessness, insecurity? How do they do it? How do they behave? Where do you feel this in your body? What does it resemble? What other difficulties and obstacles do you encounter in life? Does it resemble that case? Provide a relevant example. Give them something to eat or drink. You can repeat it later. Anxiety is a common problem associated with worry about the future. An anxious person stops valuing present success because even if something worked out today, who guarantees it will be the same tomorrow? Anything can happen, and the idea of what might happen is exaggerated with dangerous details that completely consume the person. The future is unpredictable. Feelings of anxiety evoke apocalyptic scenarios. Then the person notices the feeling of fear that manifests in these scenarios and tries to distract themselves, but the fear only grows. Breathing becomes disrupted, with emphasis on inhalation. A person in anxiety begins to perform many meaningless actions. The main thing is to do something. But since none of the actions reduce the level of worry, the person moves on to another, and so it continues. Why are we considering this topic? Getting stuck in any state, be it depression or anxiety, makes it easy to manipulate such a person. Transition them into a state of helplessness and offer them a way out connected to you. Why not a method of control? To induce anxiety, make the person justify themselves, prove their innocence. Add a bit of paranoia, as if suspecting them of something. Why didn't you tell me? Why are you hiding such information from me? Was it hard to say you went for coffee without me? You probably met someone hiding something. Every person lives with their own beliefs and filters. We can't constantly consider what someone needs to be told directly. Moreover, how do we know if the person even needs to be told? I need to have a very serious talk with you. I've received information. I don't even know how to react or how to communicate after this. Just don't pretend you don't know what I'm talking about. Then the person thinks, where did I mess up? What did I do? Where to look? Especially if they actually did mess up somewhere. The other person might not have even thought about it and just said it for fun. If you combine this with ignoring, say, well, whatever, come support them a bit in the cold, they'll saw off their own branch. This can profoundly alter their perception of reality. Our perception of our own life resembles the interpretation of the famous Rorschach blots. A psychologist shows a person pictures with blots of various outlines and asks what they see in each blot. Based on the answers, they analyze whether the subject sees symmetry, holistic drawings, etc. Depending on the interpretations, a clear picture of your inner world, fears, complexes, attitude toward loved ones, and level of intellectual development can be built. How do successful people behave? They immerse themselves positively in their positive experiences, what they liked, what they learned. This means they repeatedly revisit positive moments and acquired skills. With negative memories, they simply try not to recall them. Or if they do, they look at them from the side, dissociated, not engaging. Unsuccessful people, on the contrary, repeatedly replay negatives, repeating them over and over, getting used to them and intensifying them. They look at any success detachedly, not participating. Pleasant experiences seem false to them. They don't even find resonance in their body. Such people spend most of their time in negativity. They pay little attention to the world and others because they are mostly in internal dialogue and arguments with themselves. Changing such thought patterns is difficult because they are directed inward, and most people assume that changing themselves is impossible, which only reinforces the state of helplessness. So, what do you need to do to install depression in a person? Combine experiences of problematic situations, immerse the person's thoughts in pain, and dissociate from pleasure. Mandatory temporal orientation toward the past. Reinforce with audio-visual kinesthetic connections. Fix this position, absence of a sense of control over time and context. Thus, a depressive personality gets stuck in their past, thinking about the present and future in terms of the past. I know why they are happy. It is because I never got over breaking up with my girlfriend. My future is ruined because I will always suffer from the embarrassment and anxiety I felt with my boyfriend. If we can agree with anxiety and depression, can schizophrenia really be installed too? The theory of schizophrenia was developed by the unique anthropologist Gregory Bateson. He described the so-called double bind, or double message. The double message is one of the ways to create helplessness, and the way out of this state becomes alcohol, other dependencies, or psychosomatics. The core of the double bind is a paradoxical demand based on two contradictory signals. For example, a person demands, "Just don't be silent, say something," while themselves being in a posture or gesture of silence. That is, a significant person communicates on two levels over a long period. For instance, a wife constantly gives negative feedback on her husband's actions, criticizing him for any behavior. At the verbal level, she takes care of him, cooks, dresses him, etc. Or conversely, she expresses tenderness verbally, but non-verbally demonstrates ignoring or rejection of the partner. A mother tells her son, "Go to sleep, I can see you're tired." But her non-verbal communication says, "You're annoying me, get out of here." Imagine if the child correctly deciphers the true non-verbal message. What will happen if he declares this to his mother? Naturally, he will immediately receive negative feedback. Since he can't break off the relationship, in this state of helplessness, the child begins to withdraw into himself, autism, and reflect on his situation, immersing in the problem. If this situation repeats every day, how to live in constant disadaptation. Then the victim of double binds chooses one of three behavioral strategies. 1. Distancing by withdrawing into oneself, as we've already said. 2. Searching for hidden meaning in everything, sometimes reaching absurdity in their thoughts. 3. Turning to alcohol, drugs, or something else that allows them to calmly perceive or not perceive double messages. Another way to maintain and create schizophrenogenic thinking and communication is in the following format. A partner says something funny and amusing. In response, demonstrate verbal and non-verbal messages that the topic is very serious. A partner tells something interesting and curious. In response, demonstrate boredom and lack of interest verbally and non-verbally. Respond to something safe with a demonstration of fear and horror. In other words, to any message, we demonstrate the opposite to the partner. Remember that feedback becomes schizophrenic only if it is sudden for the person. If you start doing this constantly, the person will track it and get used to it. To create a pattern, don't listen to them 3 times, then don't listen 4 times, then listen twice, and so on. The main thing is that it is absolutely unsystematic. For example, at a company, someone might be told, "We really need you, because you're an irreplaceable specialist in your field, but most likely we will fire you." Manipulators often take advantage of the fact that most people live by certain norms, rules, and patterns. Many are afraid to refuse a request from acquaintances, saying it's awkward to refuse. But in doing so, they only inconvenience themselves, doing what the manipulator aimed for. You are not obligated to do what you don't want to do. Life is too short to waste time on that. Spend your time reaching the heights you need. I hope you found something new in this video. If so, please write what struck you the most. Perhaps you disagree with me on something. Also share that. We are all different. We can disagree with each other. Also, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel.